Hello, welcome to another episode of Get Real, an Own Person podcast. I'm your host, Megan, and I'm so happy to have Tim Bradley, founder of Pennant Video, here with me today. We're going to have a conversation about how your personal story can actually be your brand strategy, something near and dear to what I'm working on. So, hi, Tim. Feel free to introduce yourself and talk a little bit about that topic.
Megan, thanks so much. Yeah, this is going to be super fun. Yeah, I mean the shortest of backstories is that I've been in video marketing my entire career, and a lot of that is like driven by story, right? Like just understanding of the sort of constructs of story and how to engage with an audience and to sort of build tension and resolution, and so a lot of that I think is really like starting to carry through in the way that I present myself and in my business, Pennant, as you just described, right? So I've been an entrepreneur for a little over 2 years now, and so a lot of that is just showing up consistently, leading with story, leading with the audience in mind as much as possible, right? And just letting that sort of carry through, and whether people appreciate that word authenticity, right? Like I think it's really the thing I try to carry with me.
Yeah, well, I mean, that completely comes across, in my opinion, in your posts, and you can tell that this isn't your first rodeo, but you're actually being your genuine self. So, and that's what I work on with my clients at Own Person. So I thought this would be a perfect conversation of how do you kind of balance your marketing background with telling your genuine story in a kind of strategic way, because I assume you plan out some posts and some content and lead with why and tell kind of a deeper version of the business story. So how do you plan for that, or how do you think through that when you're crafting a post or thinking about upcoming messaging?
Yeah, buckle up. So the no, when I first launched the business, it was like no one's heard of us. It's a really challenging awareness problem to have, right? But it's like, well, I only have two hands, and there's only so much I can do in any given day, right? So a lot of it was just trying to figure out what the right amount of like structure I could put into my week, and then like build parts of a system from there, right? So like yes, there is spontaneity and a sense of sort of like inspiration that strikes at any given time. So part of that was like finding a best way to capture that, and a lot of it has just turned out to be like Apple Notes or voice notes, or just like a quick
Okay.
Slack message to myself to just like remind me of like this thing that I experienced, right? But
Nice.
a lot of it was just like time blocking. I'd be like, okay, this is the period of my day where I find I have the most sort of like creative energy, or I've done the hard work of whatever business development or paperwork and the things that are important to the business first, and now I have this time to really just sort of focus, right? So that was probably the biggest early learnings, was just recognizing when was the best moments for me to sort of just sit down and be focused, right? From there, it was really like, what are the right sets of tools and things like that. Like we use Notion on our team. I should give some quick color or background that we have a writer on our team, and so he's like really helpful. His name's Shaw, and he's really
I know,
helpful
Sha.
in yeah, exactly, Shaw is really helpful in the sort of editorial, like the editing process of
Yeah.
some posts and things. So
Oh,
one
so he
quick
helps with some of your personal posts too. Is that right?
yeah, so as I
Oh,
was gonna
nice.
say, a lot of it is like I'll write the sort of ugly first draft, right? That I'm like, I think this is hitting the right tone that I'm looking for, and sort of all words aside, like certain choice words aside, it's so this is a thing I would encourage your audience to have, is like that person that can be your sort of sounding board or editor to like make sure you're hitting that tone or that sentiment the way you intend to, right?
Hmm.
But again, that's also goes back to the system, right? Of like, where does that collaboration need to happen? So for us, it's in Notion, right?
Okay.
Some of it is like, for me, is challenging, where I'm like, I'm eager to like share this news, or to like whatever, to make this post, like I'm excited about it, but sometimes that like pause to have someone else look at it and be as objective as possible to your intentions is like a big help, right? So
Mm-hmm.
even today, I posted about some awards that our team, some creative awards that our team had won for some client work, and it's very different, very very different than the V1. Like the V1 was like, look at us, and it was like,
Okay.
I'm not sure that's the right tone for this, and then two iterations later, it's like, oh, this is that why behind the why, or like the
Yeah.
ask behind the ask, and so that sort of deeper meaning to as much of the post as possible, I think is what is really resonating in the audience, because it doesn't sound like everyone else because it's uniquely me, and therefore that sort of like rises either above or stands apart or is differentiated. So
Yes.
yeah, that was a lot.
No, that is a great explanation, and I can really relate with a lot of your process. And it seems like, working with someone like Shaw, who you've known for years, worked with for years, and you're friends as well, right? And that's kind of the relationship that I think helps bring out truly your content, because it's starting from you. It's based on moments in your life that you experience and you're excited about and want to document immediately. I do the same thing on my notes app all the time, and voice notes and things like that. And I actually urge my clients to do the same. And a lot of them have, speaking opportunities. So when you're there, write notes on what you're like, any ideas that come from that, for example. And I try to build that relationship like you have, where you can translate whatever they're trying to say and make sure it comes across in that way. And it seems like what at your company, you're very aligned on the strategy and the brand and how you you should and want to come across. So that's really key, is that yes, you're being authentic and quick and always moving, but there's alignment in. And I always talk about, like, should you be super polished all the time, or should you just let it fly free? And I think it seems like you have kind of a good balance of not being overly polished, but making sure it comes across in the way it's intended. Like for the awards, you're not just saying, "Look at us." You're saying, "This is the why behind it."
Yeah,
So
intention for sure.
yes,
Like
the
that's
intention.
that is a big word for us, because it's I don't know, it's kind of like unfortunately easy now to just like be off the cuff and a bit sort of flippant in what you post, and it's fine. Like I think that is an okay way to be for many, but the challenge is like that sort of compounds over time, and in that sort of flippancy, like, is that really how you want to present yourself, right? So for me, it's like,
Mhm.
well, I want to be showcase or whatever, like presented as like really intentional, really focused, like aligned on goals, especially on behalf of our clients, right? So it's like
Mhm.
I want to make sure that I'm taking the right amount of care, I guess is the other word we use a lot. It's just
Mhm.
like care and careful, I guess. And so that those like words and meanings and goals are really healthy, like backdrop to have, I would say, right? And then you add on the scaffolding or the layers of systems, right, to like make sure you don't feel like, I don't know, you're on a hamster wheel all the time, because
Yeah.
there's some weeks where I'm like, oh my gosh, I don't have anything in the drafts, I don't have anything sort of ready to go. I'm feeling like sort of like itchy about it, because I'm like, I know I need to show up and be visible,
Yeah,
but
I've had that feeling.
sometimes like it's okay. It's okay to have those like little lulls, because that's when you can kind of build on your own sort of motivation and momentum, and like really like what matters in this moment, right? I think
And
we've
to not
also
force it too, right?
totally, that's just it. You really can't force it, and I found that several ways, like the hard way, right? And so yeah, I don't know. It's a lot of it's just recognizing like the moments in your week to week. So it's like, we have a lot of new client opportunities where they're coming to us with goals and often like sort of pains that they're trying to resolve using the medium of video, right? So it's sort of like having it's not like your ear to the ground, because you're having these moments appropriately, like in a sort of business way,
Hmm.
but it's recognizing those little moments of gold where they're like leaning into a certain pain in a way, or like
Yes.
leaning into like how they're trying to find this resolution, or there's this friction either in their sort of like role or in the business. And it's like, well, those are prime opportunities to take the constructs of that conversation, and like, I tend to anonymize them, so it's not
Yeah.
like we're calling anybody out in particular. Like those are definitely going to resonate with your audience, because like they're the people you're talking to in the way your business is meant to be anyway, right? So it's sort of just recognizing that those week over week, or even daily conversations are really ample opportunities for storytelling out
Yes.
in the wild, like LinkedIn, where I am, right? And then of course there's the team and the doing of the work, that has like a lot of
Mhm.
opportunities. And then just we're sort of appropriate, sort of careful with this, but there's the industry wide conversations, right? So like
Right.
AI is kind of the most prominent one, right? So
Yep.
like we try to be intentional, like how we show up in that way too. So we're not just like more engagement bait type of
Yeah.
posts, or just like adding to the noise that is already like sort of challenging to cut through. So
Hmm.
yeah,
So how
it's
do you
it's
do that?
how do we do that? I mean, a lot of it is like we have part of our system is we have what we call content jams, where
Nice.
every other week, for it's a length of time. It's usually like 2 hours. Our team shows up and it's just like, we're going to focus on whatever sort of subject matter is important in this moment to us. So last week we had one of these, and I came to the table with a few topics. One was like where we're starting to see AI like percolate through client conversations, like just either the certain asks or the certain like ways clients are sort of attempting to use AI in their creative and things like that. So we just use those grounded moments as an opportunity to like speak to the degree of like what, like just observations really of like how
Hmm.
it's sort of getting enmeshed or immersed into the industry, right? The other was about just how a freelancer of ours sent me a text message after I sent him like client feedback, and he was like, really thank you for doing this, because like it's not often that as a DP, director of photography, do we get that direct client feedback, because there's usually a studio or an agency or someone in the middle. And so just
Hmm.
like thank you for sharing that feedback, because I wouldn't otherwise know that. That really stood out to me as like an opportunity to like, just like as an industry, we can and should do better with this, right? Like we're always aspiring and asking for feedback from our clients. And so it's like the freelancers and the amazing creative talent that are like part of any of our projects, we have the same service. Like we should be giving them the same service of like sharing the feedback that we're receiving from the clients, right? So anyway, those content jams are just a good opportunity to like pause and reflect and like have a bigger sort of contribution to like the industry at large. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's awesome
Yeah.
that you have those, extended periods of time to really make sure you're discussing all of the kind of lived experiences. And I like how you said the grounded moments inspire a lot of the storytelling opportunities, which I think is noticeable when you can tell when someone's just trying to latch on to the AI trend and
Yeah, exactly.
try to participate. And it's like we said, it seems a little forced when they're, joining the conversation in a way that isn't super natural in terms of what you're doing on a day-to-day basis with clients or just your brand messaging. So I think that that's evident in your marketing. So that's really cool. And I wanted to back up a minute because just to give any listeners context, my husband actually worked on your team for years, and that's
Yes.
how we met, and now we're friends. And I actually was, for a bit, I was a client of
Mhm.
your old company, so we've worked together as well. So I've seen you as, just, a marketing and video expert, a leader, a client, and now you've launched your own business, which is amazing. And you were talking about kind of the staples, the values of being intentional, having care, things like that. So for, along that journey, how did you get to that point where you wanted to focus on those things, and how did that define kind of the brand you're currently showing
Yeah.
up with?
Yeah, love that question. Yeah, I mean, so I have so much like pride and admiration and just like I don't know, just so much like affinity for the old agency that Gabe is still at, and I was at for 12 years. I mean, that's such a significant chunk of not just a career, but of like life, you know. So I have so much pride coming out of that experience. There's a there's a saying though that's like 1 year at an agency is like 3 years experience in house. So sort of that like dog years
Mhm.
equation. So it
Yep.
was, you know, it's just like it's a lot, you know. You're showing up and you know really trying to put the right amount of effort into your craft, and then you're also trying to understand every industry, every
Hmm.
personality, every
Overnight.
channel, every you know a type of content. So like you know we're producing all sorts of video plus podcasts plus live events for you know every the gamut of like healthcare to consumer lifestyle products, you know. So just like a huge swath of industry types, and then it would be you know Kickstarter startup businesses through Fortune like 5 companies, you know. So and then every channel like online, offline, event, you know, field
Right.
marketing. So it was the challenge I was finding for myself was like I'm not sure what impact a lot of this is making, you know, because it was
Hmm.
really, you know, just so much, not churn in people or process, just sort of churn in the amount of work, you know. It was like, great, you wrap this one, you're immediately on to the next one. And that's
Hmm.
just sort of the nature of agency life. And that's like
Yeah.
totally fine and okay. It was just, having been there for so long, it was just like I'm not getting a real sense of like where the work we're putting a lot of blood, sweat, tears, time into is making the best impact that it can. I
Hmm.
also just you know over a decade plus you see a lot of like innovation and a lot of like change in the industry and just the way client teams are being built, you know. And it was just with so for example like when I started there YouTube was like a couple years old, you know, and it was still
Yeah.
known as like the cat video platform.
Yeah.
And like, so because of that,
Before that,
brands when they were like approached to produce video, they're like, oh, we don't do TV advertising, you know, and it was a lot of sort of shiny object, like nice to have type of thing. But fast forward to now, it's like it's the preferred medium, and therefore
crucial.
every brand is producing, whether they're investing in outside resources or internal. And so it just became very apparent that you know with a lot of our client teams investing in people, most of them in house. There's a you know they're investing in advertising, and then they have the bottom of the funnel drumbeat of their internal teams producing work for like employer branding and recruiting and HR and internal comms and events and
Yep.
etc. But there was this like pretty significant gap in the middle, and so that sort of combination of like my own sense of like purpose and sense of focus and desire for that, and then this recognition of like an industry gap that is pretty apparent. That was sort of the birth of Pennant, right? And so for us, we're a mid funnel focused video marketing agency. We have this framework which like we don't have to get into on this show, but it just helps with brands recognizing how to build a more robust and thoughtful and engaging trust building buyer's journey
Hmm.
through video, which is again the preferred medium by audiences everywhere. So as you can tell, I'm very enthusiastic about this, and so
Yeah,
it's been you know
I
a
get it.
lot of it was like taking the sort of like drain of the constant pressure from all directions and be like, well, let's actually like make this a bit more enriching and focused and intentional in the type of work and for the brands that we are in the industries that we aspire to work in. And so those are for us the embodiment of like safety, security, and sustainability. So if you want to like get real specific, that's like healthcare, med tech, life sciences,
Yeah.
you know, robotics, these sort of like highly innovative and competitive industries that are you know trying to make a better world. So
Cool.
yeah,
That's
that
awesome.
helpful.
And so it makes total sense why you came to this decision and you had that plan and you just went for it. And so you're kind of talking before about when you start from scratch at square one. So when you first started, I mean, you've kind of done it before for clients, but what did you focus on first in terms of building, the awareness and kind of attracting those types of companies and people and telling a story that would achieve those goals that you were just talking about?
Yeah, I love that. In the very, very earliest days, it was so funny. I literally just hit the DMs on LinkedIn of like everyone in my network, and I just
I've
was
done that.
very clear, like, hey, like, awesome life update after this amazing run. I'm excited to share that I'm starting my own business. Obviously getting it off the ground. It'll be a few months before we sort of make formal announcements, but being a connection of mine, I like wanted you to know early and often. Uh, I'll be building in public, so like feel free to just like follow the journey. And also, if you have any referrals or opportunities that come up, like please keep me in mind, right? So
Hmm.
like maybe unsurprisingly, but surprisingly at the time, we kind of got really busy. It was suddenly like, here's opportunity, 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 and
Nice. Because it was through your connections, right?
yeah, exactly. So that network, right? And so those first 3 months were like so busy that I had to hire some amazing teammates for like 90 days to like build the brand and like build our operational systems. And so like while I was doing the fulfillment, we did that. But in the meantime, it was a lot of that that like founder first mentality where it's like no one is gonna like promote this. No one else is gonna promote this, and no one else is gonna promote it better than me, right? So it's just sort of like recognizing, jumping on the podcast is a great opportunity to get the message out, and also just sort of refine my message and like how I
Yeah.
want to sort of show up in the world, right? Being very intentional with LinkedIn, like that's really the only channel we focus on, and for that it was less like content strategy. Like we're not trying to like fill a calendar, but
Yeah.
it was like a visibility strategy. Like how do we show up with consistency and be intentional with those posts, and like so building out that strategy of like who are we talking to and what's the right set of messaging for that. For us, the system is like we want a healthy mix of like awareness posts, consideration posts, and conversion posts, so it's just like
Hmm.
well, what is the healthy dose of all of that, because it's not one to one, it's like more awareness, little less consideration and even less conversion, because we're not trying to just be like pick me the whole time.
Right.
So
Right.
yeah, and then just realizing again just sort of those moments of focus time and time blocking, and like this is where I can sort of show up the most like creatively and intentionally for this channel, and showing up with that founder first mentality. So
Hmm.
yeah, and honestly just getting comfortable talking to the green dot on the computer, just
Yeah.
that
No,
that
I'm
really
doing the
helped.
same. And it takes a lot of practice. And like you said, just like evolving your messaging the more you do it and, um, trying to have kind of varied approaches to how you're getting the message out. But that's really what it takes. And you're clearly leading with heart. This is meaningful. And even though it's probably quite busy at times, I'm sure. And you're balancing your life as well because you're not just a founder, you're a father. So, do you want to speak to that a bit? Because, I mean, you let that shine through in your content, which is amazing. But
Yeah.
just in terms of building the business, keeping your life balanced, staying centered as a person, how has that been and how has it changed since you started?
Yeah, I mean, I would say that first year was honestly like really really difficult in inside the house, because it's like literally like every waking moment you're like, okay, what more can I do to like get build momentum from something that didn't exist, to
Yeah.
like how do I
I
what
feel like you always have to do something.
yeah, you're always, I mean, grind is probably the most appropriate word, even though it's a little like trite or whatever. It's
Yeah.
like you are constantly like, I just realized I need to follow up with this person. Oh, I want to reach out to this opportunity. Oh, I need to develop this idea further. Oh, I need to finish this work, So it's just a lot of that. And it didn't get like so bad that it was like burning the candle from both ends or anything, but it's just, you have so much focus into this like this new entity, this new like being you're putting into the world.
Yeah.
It's like, but there's like the actual little people in my life that I'm
Yeah.
like, the sort of irony is that I'm doing it for them, and so,
Right.
and to like have this balance in my life. And so, yeah, it was not perfect by any means, and I had to really be, again, intentional with like, I have to put this phone down and like hide it at like 5 o'clock, otherwise I'm just gonna keep like picking it up and like
Yeah.
following
And
up.
that's hard when you're so invested and you're so driven. So what made it
Yeah.
easier for you? Just
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it was honestly like time, but also like some hard conversations between my wife and myself of just like, hey, like we need to strike a better sense of alignment. It's like it's never going to be in balance. It's always like a pendulum swinging. It's just
yeah.
like you don't want it to swing so drastically and like so much motion like that that'll like make you nauseous, right? So
Yeah.
trying to find that better alignment so the swing isn't so dramatic. So a lot of that really just came down to like a bit more structure in our own lives of like Sunday mornings we over coffee or breakfast or whatever, like because kids are watching Sunday morning cartoons or something. Is like let's the two of us sort of map out this week a little bit, and that
Nice.
early start of the week communication just like really helped with understanding like where we need to support each other in the moments, like where the sort of like perceived gotchas of the week were going to creep up on us, like
Yeah.
scheduling or pickup or the
I should do
karate
this.
class, just like like how are we pulling this off this week. So
hmm
that like planning, that's what felt like kind of force planning at first, now it's just become just part of our weekly like routine, and it really helps us just like become aligned on like our intentions for the week, you know what I mean? um yeah,
That's
communication. I mean, I'm not like, I do this all day, right? I'm like on Zoom or whatever and talking to folks like um all the time, that I was finding myself to be like really exhausted by the
mm,
end of the day. And that's
yeah.
when my wife's like, well, I want to hear about your day. Like, how did it,
Yeah.
like, well, what did you do? And I'm like, oh, I had a lot of calls, and she's like, that is not helpful to like understanding like what's going on over there. So it's
Yeah.
also like finding those times to like go on a walk together, or like, just be in the
Yes.
car and just like really just contribute and show up, to communicate that, right? So that was something I had to like learn for myself, and I'm obviously always still learning about that, but I think that those like, again, those blocks of time are really helpful to just like show up in that way.
Yeah, and it's listening to this, it's I mean kind of similar to your work strategy as well, like having the blocks of time, having the what you call the jam,
Yep.
your morning planning, but if you're setting the expectations together and always communicating, um, do you have
All
a
right.
kid? It's okay. No, that's totally fine. Did you
Okay.
say hi?
uh, Home office life,
Home office life. No, no, this is a perfect example
Yep.
of just this is life. You only have so much energy, but you want to make sure you're conserving it for what really matters and what,
Yeah.
because like you said, we get in the grind mentality of another call, I'm jumping to the next thing. But if you have you're running on nothing and you can't even catch up with your spouse, then something needs to shift. So I like the visual of the pendulum not swinging too dramatically.
Yeah, it's been helpful for me, and I also recognize like, because the nature of our work is all is project based, right? That like there's some really exceptional projects that come in that just require tons of focus, tons of energy, tons of people, tons of just, I don't know, just a lot of effort, right? And
Yeah.
you get this like creative sort of high and flow state through all of that, and it's amazing, but you come out the other side of like a healthy day of production that you kind of end up crashing, like the
Yeah.
my wife calls it like the letdown, where
Yeah.
you're so just like, yes, 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 and then it's over, and then you're like, oh my gosh, like all this energy just like drains. And so I'm recognizing for myself that like when we have this big swell, to like put a day on the calendar, like usually 2 or 3 days later, that's like don't be on the computer. Like go for a hike, like play golf, go to the beach, just like whatever that thing is, it is like you can sort of completely detach from the thing you were so like
Hmm.
high strung, high focus on, so that it's just like a really healthy reset of
Hmm.
energy and focus, and it's like helps you sort of make the turn into like the next thing. So I'm not perfect at it, and I work with an executive coach, and
Oh,
he's
nice.
shout out Coach Dave. Like he's like really helpful and like reminding me of that, to just like, great, you have this big production that Saturday, you should like plan something with your family that's just like,
That's great.
detach from screens and get you out of the house, and like
Yeah.
just sort of reset, so those healthy moments.
Well, it seems like you're doing all of the right things to make sure you're centered and healthy, and this business can have some longevity, right? Because if you're going to be burnt out, if your family's gonna, not have as much focus as it should, then it just won't work, right? So I think that's what it takes to keep, having the inspiration for yourself, for your team, your clients, having the energy to bring your best self. So, is there anything else you would add in terms of like thinking ahead, how you can continually conserve that energy in the right way and make sure that while it's easy to get really in it, that you're not overdoing it on a
Yeah.
day to day?
Yeah, I think yeah, I guess the only one other thing I would add is like learning to give yourself some grace too, right? Where it's like we are people, we're
Yeah.
making often many decisions based on the information we have in front of us, right? And just like you're trying to do what's right by yourself, by the business, by your family, by your community, right? And it's like sometimes it doesn't always work out exactly as like you had planned in the moment of the decision makings, and like that's okay, so it's
Hmm.
like i
Gotta
try to
shift.
i try to carry a couple things. It's like, to in those moments, like a year from now, who's going to care? 5 years from now, who's going to care, right? So it's just sort of
That's
that
good.
those like, maybe they're glass half empty perspectives, but like they tend to help when you're like, oh, man, that just didn't work out the way I expected, and it's like it's really okay. Like there's gonna be
Yeah.
another opportunity. There's gonna be another, that's a learning moment, of course, and you can just apply that to the next one. So you just try to keep that constant optimism as much as you can.
Yeah, that's a really good attitude because I mean, I've been in situations where even in marketing, like teams often feel like it's life or death and things are on fire and it's now, 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 or yes, it needs to be delivered yesterday. Um, but it's like you said, who's going to care in a year or even less than that? So I think that's a really important perspective, and not being too hard on yourself
Right.
and keeping it in perspective throughout all of your work. So that's really important, and I've learned that too in the past couple of years.
Yeah,
Um,
and I think in the same spirit though, it's like you you got to have your vision and your intention for where you want to be in that year, 5 years from now, so
right.
it's like it's a double-edged sword, where it's like if something doesn't work out exactly the way you wanted, like it's okay, like give yourself that grace, but then you're also trying to be like, well, this is where I want to be in 6 months, this is where I want to be in a year, and it's like
Hmm.
what are those bigger decisions that need to happen in and among the small decisions that happen daily, right? So it's
Hmm.
yeah, it's I don't have a good analogy for it. Maybe it's juggling small
I
balls
was
and
thinking,
large
I was
balls
about
at
to
the
say
same
that.
time or
Yeah.
something, but it's that's an interesting balance, or sense of balance to strike too. But
Yeah, always kind
exciting
of
too,
thinking at
because
the
like,
end game and
yeah,
sticking to those goals as much as you can and having the vision and the dream. And it seems like you're always striving towards that and able to kind of adjust as needed on a day
yeah,
to
it's a
day
bit of
too.
a
So that's good.
yeah,
It's
it's
a
a
hard
North
dance,
Star.
but
Yeah. Yeah, it is. And, I think those moments of pause like allow you to reflect, and that reflection helps you with that realignment towards the future. So
hmm.
it's all healthy.
Yeah, and it seems like a lot of your content is reflective as well, which is I think just important storytelling too, especially for the awareness piece of what you're doing.
Yeah.
One last question. This has been a great conversation, but I'm curious if you had to give advice to someone who is kind of doing something similar, starting from scratch, building something from nothing. What are maybe three things you would urge them to do when it comes to building a really authentic brand and telling their true story?
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like a lame start, but like finding the right system for yourself, right? Like success it does come from systems, really, So it's like understanding that sense of your week and where you can apply the right like energies for yourself, based on the type of person you are, as a morning,
Yeah.
afternoon, like just sort of where you can be and and the resources that surround that, right? Like the tools or the people, like that editor, that objective person that can just sort of help you with your tone, right? So that's a really healthy sense of scaffolding, right? But the other part is that you have to live, you know what I mean? Like you can't like do this from, in my case, my home office like all of the time. You have to like go out and network, you go out and
Hmm.
experience. Like fortunately in my industry, we're constantly working on something new that like puts us in a place or space that is unique to a moment in time. So like all these like lived moments help you with finding the little gold nugget to like hold on to for your story, you know what I mean? And then
Hmm.
it's being consistent, like that can be really hard when you're like, whatever, overwhelmed by the amount of work you got to do. Which is like, yeah, that's a great thing. That's actually the place you want to be, but then you can hit these sort of swells or peaks and valleys of like, the momentum you're trying to build. So for us, that system of like showing up 2 to 3 days a week across a whole team that's aligned on the goals of the business, and we know who we're talking to and for what reasons, and like can show up intentionally, right? Like that just compounds that momentum over a period of time, right? So the system, you got to live beyond just like your
Yes.
screen, right? And then just being consistent, I think, is the are other three things.
Perfect. Yeah, those make total sense. And I think that's exactly what you've done to get to this point. So, great advice. And yeah, thank you so much again. It was wonderful to speak and just catch up with you in general. And I'm really excited for people to hear more about how to make their strategy more of their personal story. And that's what sticks. So, appreciate it.
Heck yeah, thank you, Megan. This is
All
fun.
right, take care.